Hey everyone, today I want to get a little up close and personal and show you guys my secret clutter zone. And I'm super self-conscious to do this. Honestly, I'm ashamed, but I just know I want to be fully transparent with you guys and acknowledge that sometimes it's hard to stay on top of our clutter. And often we all end up having that one area of our home that seems to be a magnet or a trap for all that extra clutter. Sometimes when we're in the middle of a task and we get called away, it's easy to end up leaving what feels like a trail of clutter behind us. And so today I want to discuss specific strategies to stay on top of your clutter zone, as well as to open up and be honest and show you how bad my clutter zone currently is and show the process of me going through it and cleaning it. I will say also today it's particularly bad, so I thought it would kind of demonstrate a good before and after. So hopefully it doesn't usually get this bad. Hi, I'm Aylin, if we haven't met before, and this is my channel, Slice of Light. If you want to see more videos on simple living, minimalism, living more intentionally, and building an empowering mindset, then hit the subscribe button below, and you can also hit the thumbs up button if you end up liking the video. Doing those things supports me, so if you're willing to, I'd appreciate it. I definitely think one thing we need to remember with the clutter zone is that sometimes life is hard, being an adult is hard, and so I think it's understandable that sometimes some of that clutter ends up building up. There's so many bills and paperwork and all the stuff that modern day society seems to tell us we need that it can be difficult to stay on top of. And so I think it's important to realize that we can actually do something about it. We don't have to just be the victim to our clutter. I know in the case of my household, I live with my husband, Andy. He is a medical doctor, a resident, so he has really long hours. Lately, he's been working 6 days a week for long hours. And then I most recently have been working a full-time job on top of 2 side hustles. And so we've both been incredibly busy, and it's been extra hard to stay on top of the clutter. And so I do think it's important to practice a little self-compassion. Sometimes it builds up, and it usually builds up when we're super busy and there's a reason for it. But that being said, there's always a bit of time that we can carve out of our day, even if it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, to try to get on top of the clutter, because the more that it builds up, the more overwhelming it can become. Now, while a clutter zone is definitely dangerous, I do think that sometimes having a specific place where you drop things, if you absolutely have to, like you're in the middle of a task and you have to put things down, I think can actually be a good idea. Rather than clutter spreading throughout the entire space and overwhelming the entire home, I think having a specific spot can be really beneficial. Also, sorry if there's noise. I think it's my refrigerator making this low hum noise, and I don't really know what to do about it because this is where we're filming today, in this like back corner going down to the basement. So please bear with me. Anyway, my point is that sometimes having a small clutter zone that's very confined and constrained can actually help you get more on top of the clutter than just having it everywhere. I know I used to have our clutter zone sort of be on our kitchen table with the mindset that, oh, I'll stay more on top of the clutter if it's like in the middle of the room. But the problem was that I didn't stay on top of it, and it took me just as long to get on it. And so depending on how on top of it you are, one option is actually finding a spot that's a little bit out of the way, but is still accessible and a spot that you know you will get to. I also think one other strategy that can help with getting on top of the clutter in your clutter zone is to have some kind of rule about when you need to get to it. Because if you just say, oh, I need to get to it at some point, is it going to get done? At least for me, it's not going to, because I tend to procrastinate and put things off. So for example, what I've been doing most recently is telling myself that by Sunday at the end of the day, I need to have cleared out the clutter zone at least one time that week. So if I have time earlier in the week that happens to open up, I can go clear out the clutter zone. But if I haven't done it by Sunday, that means I need to make time in my Sunday to clear it out. By forcing myself to clear it out at least once a week, often I end up doing it more than once, and it just keeps me on top of it a little bit more. It's so easy for that clutter to just gradually build up. So creating some kind of structure around how you're going to conquer that clutter, I think can really help make sure that you do it on a regular basis, because it is going to likely build back up. Now, I'm sure there are some people out there that are full, intense, extreme minimalists who are able to never have clutter anywhere. I'm just not at that point yet, and I've accepted that, but I'm slowly, gradually trying to declutter more and more so I can get closer to that. And I definitely think that underlying all of this, the more you can declutter, the easier this little clutter zone is going to get for you. And I've really noticed that myself. Okay, let's get going. I think one really smart thing you can do when you're going through your clutter zone is to make observations and patterns you see as far as the stuff that tends to land there, and think about what are ways I could solve this problem and keep it from landing in this clutter zone. And one thing I've noticed is that this has maybe started to become a bit of a landing spot for things that I intend to bring down to the basement. Now, is that the end of the world? Maybe it does help a bit in that I don't have to make a bunch of trips down. I can make one trip and take a couple things down. But ultimately, I think it's a sign maybe I need to be more willing to just go down to the basement and drop things off. Or at the very least, maybe when I'm going down to the basement anyway, I just need to make sure that I grab something from the shelves to bring down and do it on my way to make it easier. One thing that I've noticed is in the process of moving, both sets of parents, my husband's parents and my parents, have given us a lot of stuff, which I actually really appreciate because it's amazing how much more you might need for your house and taking care of the yard and all of that. But it also means that we have a lot more clutter around, and so I need to figure out a system to make sure I'm on top of it. So I have lots of paper clutter here, and honestly, the majority of it is wedding invitations. And so I need to get on top of RSVPing to these, as well as some important bills, and then maybe a couple of knickknacks. So I'm gonna go through this paper clutter as well and figure out a good spot for it. So you might notice all this shoe clutter. I definitely need to get on top of a system that will work, but we're getting there. So that was my tidying of my clutter zone. And what I noticed is that, first of all, it really didn't take me that long to do. It was a pretty quick task, and it looked way worse than it actually was. Like when I saw it from afar, I was a little bit overwhelmed. But then once I got in there, it really only took me 15-20 minutes to do. There are strategies to overcome the clutter zone. If you keep it very contained and minimized, ideally it would be even a smaller space than my many shelves. And if you come up with a schedule or a structure or a system to make sure that you're going through it at regular intervals, you'll be able to stay on top of it instead of letting it build up over the long run. I also think there's just so much pressure from society, I think especially for women, to keep your home tidy and perfect and pristine and just seem so presentable to everybody. And so I think part of this video is also just to normalize the reality that sometimes a little bit of clutter builds up, but that doesn't mean that you can't still be pursuing minimalism, because I actually think more and more decluttering will make that clutter zone more and more minimal and easier to take control of. Maybe it'll get to a point where that clutter zone is just a very small pile of papers that I go through every day. I want to acknowledge in general that, I come from a standpoint of being real with you guys, and that, I'm pursuing minimalism. I'm not the supreme expert. I'm just somebody pursuing this path and moving closer and closer to my values and what I care about in life and creating a more minimal home. I also just want to mention the next about 2 months are work-wise going to be very, very hectic for me. And so although lately I've been posting 2 videos a week, it may reduce in the number of videos. We'll see how it goes. In an ideal world, I'd keep doing 2 videos every week. It's likely to go to 1 video for a lot of the weeks in the next 2 months. And potentially I might even miss a week just because I'm so busy. But I want to assure you that that's sort of planned, in that because other work stuff is getting heavier just over the next 2 months, I don't want to pressure myself to have to constantly be pushing out as much content as I normally would. So just bear in mind that that's just over the next couple of months, but that I'll hopefully be ramping back up once things settle down a little bit. And that's enough of that, because that's not very interesting. Just wanted to let you know about that. But if you have decluttering tips of your own, or if you have an experience with a clutter zone, let me know below. It'll make me feel less alone. And that's really all I have for you. So thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.